Folks, there's a lot of debate out there about who makes the best AR-15 magazine. What we're not going to do is stand here and tell you what you should buy, but what we're going to try to do instead is show you the differences between the modern and the most popular AR-15 magazines on the market today, and those that are somewhat affordable for you and I on the general market as far as retail sales go. Let's take a good look at this. Just like there are a lot of AR-15 manufacturers out there, there are also a lot of AR-15 magazine manufacturers out there. And many times you can't rush in to purchasing one of these magazines just because it says it's a 30-round magazine. All magazines are not created equally. What we did is we took 4 that are in a similar price range of around $15 to $20 per magazine, and we wanted to compare them. We've got a Magpul Generation 2 PMag, we've got a HexMag Generation 2 HX30, we've got an MFT Mission First Tactical, and last but not least, we have the 32-round brand new Daniel Defense magazine. Thanks Gator Guns for donating this one. And we're going to see how these things compare. We're going to see how they size up to one another. For so long, the GI Mag was the way to go. This is a metal magazine, and the best thing about the metal magazine is it doesn't flex, it doesn't swell when it's being subjected to various types of temperature or falling droppage or anything like that. The downside to it is the feed lips could bend on it. So you're talking about a reliability issue now. The downside to a polymer magazine is if you drop it on the feed lips, you could potentially break the feed lips. The polymer magazines have come a long way in that they are just as strong from a feed lip standpoint as the old GI Mags. The recipe for the resin on these AR-15 magazines has gotten remarkably strong and remarkably consistent over the years. Let's take a close look at the thickness and the durability of some of these feed lips on these magazines. First up is Magpul. If you notice, the feed lips on this one are 0.064 inches in thickness. Now we have the HexMag, and you'll notice these feed lips are 0.083 inches, a little bit thicker. 0.084 inches, a little bit thicker than the Magpul. Next up, we have the Mission First Tactical, and you will notice that the feed lips on this one actually only 0.073. And last but not least is the Daniel Defense. It comes in at 0.053, actually pretty thin compared to the other guys. So if you're talking about reliability, maybe you consider thickness. It's possible that Daniel Defense uses a different type of resin, and maybe it's a little stronger and they can afford to make it thinner. Just pointing it out. Now, all of these magazines claim to be tool-free disassembly. I consider tool-free disassembly to be able to use my fingers alone and not with the help of a bullet that I would consider a tool. Now, I know some people may think that I'm being a tool, so it's technically not tool-free if I'm the one doing it, but as you can see, Magpul, it does require a little bit of extra attention to take it apart, where the HexMag comes right apart with the use of a finger. The Mission First Tactical, a little bit tricky here. It's actually got 2 buttons on the bottom that you have to push in. And if you notice, it's a little bit cumbersome, not trying to knock the magazine. I don't understand the design here actually, but you actually have to press one button and kind of push the other one as well. And then when you're sliding it forward, the other catch can catch in the front hole as it's passing it. So a little bit cumbersome on the Mission First Tactical. On the Daniel Defense, you have to use a bullet on this one. There's a small hole that you have to press in. You're not pressing this with your finger unless you're some kind of a tiny fairy or something with little bitty fingers. For the most part, the inside of most of these magazines are the same. The outside, of course, it's pre-curved for good bullet feed. You'll notice that they all use a non-corrosive spring, very good spring tension on all 4 of these. But you will notice a little bit of a difference on some of these guys because they have a little bit different follower. Naturally, all of these guys have a non-tilt follower on them, but I noticed the Mission First and the Daniel Defense followers actually had a little bit less space up on one end of it that's going to allow this thing to kick to one side. You'll notice the Magpul and the HexMag both have more material on the front and the back of the follower, which is going to give it pretty positive and level rise without any tilt whatsoever in the magazine. Let me show you what I'm talking about. I take the Mission First Tactical magazine, and when I push down on the rear of the follower, notice how the bottom end rocks down, but the front stays up. That's not positive. In other words, that little piece of material that it's missing in the front is allowing the back to rock down instead of pushing the entire thing down. When I push down on either the front or the back of this follower, the whole follower should go down at the same level. It should not rock like this. It should not tilt like this. Notice the hex mag, it's positive. When I push down on the back, the entire thing pushes down. It's not rocking. It's not tilting. This is a lot more positive feed of your rounds into your AR-15. Now, one of the most critical things to look for when looking for a magazine is one that will release cleanly and clearly and positively from your AR-15 whenever you hit that mag release. You do not want to have to use your support hand to pull that magazine from the mag well. As you notice, all of these, the mag pull, the hex mag, the Mission First Tactical, and the Daniel Defense, they all drop freely when engaging the mag release. These are all 4 good magazines to use with this Windham lower. Now, I don't want to be overly critical, but I did notice one thing on some of these magazines that are not on others. If you'll notice where the mag catch notch is on this hex mag, there's a bit of a ramp, a raised area right above the notch. That's not on the mag pull. It's not on the Mission First Tactical, but there is a slight bump on the Daniel Defense. Just a bump, not a ramp. You'll notice again, the PMag and the Mission First don't have it, but the hex mag and the Daniel Defense do have a slight one on it. Let me explain. When you insert the PMag into the lower, you'll notice that the mag catch drops just slightly into the mag catch notch. It's just a slight drop off when it gets to the edge of that lip and drops into the notch. When you put the hex mag in there, there's this slight ramp, and it gently raises that mag catch up a little bit so that it's got farther to fall into the mag catch notch. So it rises up a little bit higher. Why is that important? Because it gives it a little bit more inertia whenever that thing is falling down in case any dirt or grime has gotten into the mag catch. This way, it's a more deliberate slamming. It's very similar in nature to using your forward assist, which I hardly ever use. Why don't I hardly ever use it? Because I pull my charging handle all the way back and let it slam forward whenever it's grabbing that round. I don't pamper it. I don't tiptoe around it. I don't ride it forward. This is not good to do. You need to let it fall on its own. Now, I know that's splitting hairs to a certain degree, but when I'm spending the same amount of money on 2 products, I'm looking for one of them to have an advantage to make me want to buy it. It's also important to note that not all rifles accept every magazine. The FN Military Collector's Rifle is one that I've had a little bit of an issue with some magazines in, but I was able to put all 4 of these magazines in. They all inserted positively, and they all ejected with no problem. One rifle that has had a little bit of an issue and a little bit of a history with magazines not working properly in it is another FN product, the FN Scar. In this case, the mag pull PMag worked fine, the hex mag, it worked fine, but I noticed whenever I tried to insert the Mission First Tactical, I'm not sure if this were an issue with the bolt catch interacting with something on the top of the magazine, the back side of the magazine. We didn't do any further research, but if you notice, at first I could not get this magazine to catch, to insert securely into the Scar. At some point it eventually did. Again, this is going to take a little bit more after this video is done for us to investigate what this issue was. But once we got it in there, then the thing seemed to work okay. We also had the exact same issue with the Daniel Defense. It was a little bit of a challenge to get it in there initially, but once we got it in there, everything was fine. It seemed to insert properly, and it seemed to drop free as well. Of course, you want to have positive insertion of the magazine as well. As you see, this PMag by Magpul inserts very, very cleanly in this Windham Weaponry AR-15. But another often overlooked issue when having feeding problems or extraction problems or things of that nature is the fact that your magazine does not interact with your AR-15 well. Sometimes you'll see that, and you'll see guys start looking at their AR-15 when it very well could be the magazine. We shot all 4 of these magazines in this Windham Weaponry AR-15, and every one of them inserted easily, nicely. They fired right, they fed right. We had no issues on any of these magazines, and they all worked flawlessly on the range. All in all, the 4 of these magazines all performed well and did exactly what we wanted them to do. We liked some features of each magazine, probably not everything about one magazine, but different ones have different features that we really like. It's very important to realize that we're not saying these are the 4 best magazines out there. Lancer makes a great magazine, we just didn't have one, and there are tons of other magazine manufacturers out there. We mainly wanted to show you what to look out for when purchasing one, and making sure that you're looking out for things that might not leave you high and dry. So what we're really looking for here is not who has the best bumper sticker, not who has the coolest t-shirt, none of that matters, not even who makes the prettiest AR-15 magazine. What we're looking for is reliability.
When you find that, stick with it, be consistent with it, and don't worry about what anybody else says online, on their bumper sticker, or their t-shirts, or their baseball caps. Find what works for you, find what's consistent, find what's the best thing to keep you safe and consistent in running these 30 and even 32 rounders consistently through your AR-15 without malfunctions, hang-ups, or anything like that.